right, guys. Hey, well, first of all, happy Monday. Steve, you're looking good in that podcast. I am not in my podcast room. It's traveling. I was actually down close to you. I'll call you later, but I was down close to you yesterday. I was supposed to fly out of that your airport.
Yeah.
And then I went to Palm Beach. And anyway, long story short, the last 2 nights, I'll just say flights have not been my friends. But I am now in Atlanta, and we'll get home later today, some point when I can get out of here. So due to weather and things of this, that's part of the travel, and it's okay. It's called the growth.
For sure.
We go through growth every time. So anyway, as we say that, thank you for jumping on. First of all, I'm going to get into this pretty quick with you because I know your time is super valuable. But guys, as we kind of, hopefully, I know it's Monday. These guys, they don't know what 10 o'clock means, but that's okay. We got a lot of people that'll pile in here in a minute. But anyway, with that said, guys, I'm more excited. I had a chance to spend some time with some leadership over the last few days. Last week we had an amazing lock-in in Roanoke. For those of you who were there, and it's life-changing, number one, and they get better every time we do them. We had Steve, we had probably 40 agents in our office, and it's the second time we've done that one. We started on Wednesday. For me it was 15 6-hour days, but I mean they were in there from morning to night dialing, and had food together and broke bread together, and had great time together. So I think some of the camaraderie that comes out of those is just as important as anything else. And had results. I mean, people were making money. I forget the number we came up with. I'm not sure if anybody's on this call remembers that number. It was a pretty big number that they wrote. Now, kind of like Steve Giordano numbers, but we had a lot of people do it. You know what I mean? It was like, when I say Giordano's, I mean, as a whole, you write so much business. I mean, I'm just being funny. I'm not being funny, but they're doing telesales or learning telesales. I've seen that, I think it's something that we had to embrace, and it's definitely something that's going to be part of our future for sure. Well, it's not even our future, it's now, and I think that the at home and what you've done, and of course we came from that background, is something that still works. Obviously will always work. It's just a matter of those that want to do it will do it. But the telesales, I think, is a way to scale our business even faster, which is what I've realized and embrace myself. I'm actually, Steve, gotten on the phone and, kind of figuring that thing out over the last 3 weeks myself, I think I submitted again, not about me here. I'm just, this is new. It was new to me. It was like, hey, I kind of know how to do this, but this is a whole different game, and so learning that, I think I submitted 15 over the last 3 weeks, something like that, just again, a couple of days here and there, being able to talk to some people and kind of figure that thing out so I can teach it a little bit, right? It's like, hey, I know how to do this, but then teach it's kind of weird to talk about it, right? So with that said, we're super excited. Growth is happening. We've been having a lot of new people coming in, growth, and excited about that. And it's guys like Steve Giordano that they give hope to a lot of people, right? Watching Steve the last 3 years, I remember a quick story. My first time I met Steve, I met his new wife. Like they were in there working out. I think she was next to me, and we just got, she was fitness, and she mentioned your name, and I'm like, I know him, and it's one of those deals. And I got a chance to, so I want to make sure I meet him. I think she was on the treadmill next to me or something. I can't remember. We were in Vegas one morning, very early, right, Steve? And that was my first convention. Probably yours too, right? Wasn't that your first one?
That was my second, actually.
Okay. But he was a baller, obviously, even at that time. But it was funny because I think John got you that year. Was that the year he got you, or was that the first year you got him? I can't remember.
Yeah. I kind of started full time in February that first year.
Okay. And he crushed it. I remember. But hey, I'm going to take that belt from you. Right. That was fun. And of course, the last 3 years he's held that. And and I think with that said, guys, if you guys don't know who he is, like I said, I'll just say it this way from this perspective, but millions and millions of dollars and thousands and thousands of families have been protected because Steve's heart in going out and serving people. And his beautiful wife have, 2 amazing kids, and their family's growing, and he's building a business. And obviously, Steve's goal, I mean, I'm going to share it, but obviously he wants to be an integrity partner, right? Do I think he will be? Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, we want guys like Steve. I mean, I mean, he's my partner already. It's just, hey, where's that look like? So I love the guy, appreciate him. Our friendship's growing, and I know when you lost your dad, I mean, again, that's how I view this business. We're family, right? And you guys are, Margo, are just great people, and I just appreciate what you do and you serving every day. But guys, this is a guy that knows how to do this business. Make sure you put some questions up in the chat. But Steve, maybe share your very beginnings, man, like where you came from, share your story for those that don't know it. Because, I mean, it's easy for us to see you on stage and like, hey, man, that guy, I mean, he's really, really, really good at what he does. But, dude, there's a lot of hard work behind that, number one. And there's a story behind it. So maybe just start there and just share for those that just don't know, because a lot of new people too. Just share the humble beginnings that you had and what's gotten you where you are now. Start with.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's amazing to see the things that you've done in your time, and working together to try and all get better, right? So for me, I kind of never in a million years thought I'd be in the life insurance industry. I had been in restaurants, hospitalities my entire career, and it kind of got to a point where I had moved around the country a little bit to get promotions, and it was one of those things. The income was kind of capped. You had to be moving all over, and I just kind of felt like there was more. And sometimes deep down you feel it, and you just don't know where to go to find more. And lo and behold, Mark Mead was a friend of mine. He had been in restaurants as well. We started talking about some things, and he had told me, hey, life insurance industry. And then I had been thinking about it, but I just knew nothing, like literally zero about it. And then he started talking to me about FFL. And then I started doing my research. And, now this is 2018. And I just said, you know what? In my gut, I feel like it's the time to do something different. And this is it. And we're going to give it everything we got. And kind of got going. Knew nothing, but I knew where to get the answers. He was a great mentor. And there was obviously a lot of others that were here that I was able to kind of, plug into and learn from. And I knew this. I knew that I was willing to bet on me, and I knew that I was willing to work really, really hard to try and get as good as humanly possible at doing this. And to me, getting good at doing this is just a matter of doing it a lot. You know what I mean? Like you could play basketball and not have ability playing basketball, and you might never get good at basketball. But like life insurance, like you can get good at doing life insurance if you do it enough and have enough people to to listen to that need it. So that was kind of, my story and journey as to how I got going. And then I just said to myself, I want to just try and be the best I can be and work as crazy hard as I can and really set my family up for great things. And same thing with my team. And now we're, it's been an amazing ride and we're on a good trajectory. And I'm blessed to see where we're headed.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Hey, what is, when you, and here's some things. Obviously, got new agents on, and obviously, we love to see young blood and things like that. People learning. What is it that when you go out there, because I know it happens. I mean, I know it does. I mean, I've been in the business 26 years. I cold called. I knocked on doors. So I know what it's like to go out there and have somebody no-show me for sure. Because oh yeah, brother wants you to come over, but then they're not there. It was different back then. We didn't make phone calls. We just showed up. And, with, booking appointments. But how did you deal with the adversity side of it? Like back then, but also now, you're great at what you do, but dude, we still have no shows. We still have, now he plays less because he's gotten better, obviously, but he also worked the numbers. But how did you deal with the adversities in the field? I have, what I did is I just focused on other people and got out of my own head. But what did you, and I can, dig in that, this is about you. How did you deal with it when you had something going on at the house? When you had maybe some things in your family, like, again, your father, I'm being real, like, I lost my dad in November, and, do I get up and go to work or do I deal with that? There's things that, I guess my thing, when your life hits you in the head and things are going on, how did you react to that? Because obviously the last 3 years, it's obvious you didn't lose course, but how did you do that on a day-to-day basis, I guess?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. Because one thing I've always said, even going back to my time in corporate America, was you can either take the things that you deal with in your personal life to your job or your business, no matter what that is, and let it affect you, or you can compartmentalize things correctly and say, okay, I need to be sad and grieve and whatever it is over on this side. But when it comes Monday morning, 8 o'clock or whatever it is, I got to put that over here and I got to go to work over here, because if I allow this to bleed into the work side is going to suffer. And the world is not about money. However, if you have money problems, you're going to start having just problems in general, right? Like money is not, the answer, but money can solve a lot of, we'll call it problems or things that you got to deal with. So I've always been good at compartmentalizing even prior to insurance. And it's one of those things like you try and teach it to people, and I think you either have it or you don't. It also is a mindset too. If your goals or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish for yourself, your family, whatever you're trying to do, if they're always number one, then everything else has to be number two for the most part. And again, yes, like you said, we've had loss, we have death, we have children, we have home. There's a lot of things that we all face. The problem that I see that a lot of insurance agents have is they focus on that stuff the majority, and then it's like, oh, well, when all that stuff's done, I'm going to go to work now. And it can't be that way. It has to be, let me focus here on those important things. So this way, this is stable, and I'm able to better deal with the things over here. It's all mental. Not easy, probably the biggest, most challenging thing you can do. But it's kind of like being in the moment, right? Like you're in the moment when you're grieving for the loss of a loved one, and then you close the moment a little bit, go do what you got to do. And yeah, are you gonna have your times? You're gonna, some things are gonna bleed, of course. We're human. But if you do it a little bit less and you really know what's what, you're going to have more success because you're going to be focused on the things that are able to better take care of your family in the long
run. All right. So that's really, really, really good stuff. And you mentioned compartmentalizing. My wife was very good at that. And I guess in the field side, I was able to do that. But for me, it was just focusing. I don't know that I have that goal, but I focused on, again, the people I serve because we had to make money, like you mentioned. So let's go back to when you started dialing, because you did. Now you probably have $1 and things like that. But how did you change from, say, did you do mortgage protect? I know you do mortgage, obviously, a lot, some of that. But did you do final expense in the beginning? Did you mushroom into, obviously, where you are today? You have. But, I mean, let's just take back that first year you went from part-time to full-time. How did you, I guess, number one, how did you make that transition? Because there are some people on here maybe trying to go from part-time to full-time. What did that look like? And then, as far as the dialing side or the preparation of going on the appointments, how did you make that change, if you will?
Yeah, it's interesting for a lot of people that go from that part-time to full-time. I'd like to tell people this. If you can commit to 2 months of it being the hardest work you ever do for the ability to transition into doing this full-time. So for me, I was working a full-time job, and then I said, all right, I'm going to cut out, going to the pool on Saturdays. I'm going to cut out watching sports certain nights. I'm going to, work my full-time job, come home, dial, book some appointments for the weeknights, listen to some trainings, and then run, and then, dial I would do Thursday, Friday night dialing and run a full day Saturday, and I'd take off Sunday. And I was like, all right, 2 months of commitment of doing that, giving up, hey, I live in South Florida and I'd like to go hang out on a Saturday afternoon, but I know that I want to get out of the rat race of my full-time job, right? So that's the hardest part for new people, because then it becomes, oh my God, I got to change my life and I got to work harder. And then it became, let's say I was working 40 hours full-time and maybe doing this, 10 to 15. And let's face facts. I mean, we're dialing, we're running appointments. Yes, it's work, but is it work? It's obviously different than a lot of works that are out there. But that gave me the ability in doing that to say, okay, here's what my numbers are part-time running that schedule for 2 months. I know what I need to make to pay my bills and this, that, and the other. Now I feel confident enough to transition. So the first thing I'd say to anybody is, can you commit, if you work a full-time job right now and are trying to add it part-time to move over, can you commit to 60 to 70 hours a week for 2 months to give yourself the confidence, the earnings, the cash flow to then say, all right, cool. I feel confident enough that this is going to work. and I can go now do this full time. And here's the other thing. This isn't for everybody. So some people might do that and be like, you know what? I'm good where I'm at. And that's fine. Like, nothing wrong with that. It's better to find out that way than to just do it and, oh my God, now it doesn't work. So that's how it was for me. But you really got to get somebody that's very committed to that. Hey, I'm going to do it the 60 hours, you know, full-time, part-time job, and then transition.
And so, yeah, I love that. And, you know, you said a lot there that I think a lot of people maybe will not grasp, but he was willing to sacrifice and work very, very hard. And Steve's a hard worker, clearly. Steve, how did, like, okay, so then you made the move and you're full-time, right? And what do you think it is that, and you've probably seen this downfall with a lot of agents that maybe come here and they've done that. Like they leave their other job. Now, maybe they didn't do it quite like you did this. Hey, I made the jump. And then, you know, I think there's ways of articulating this to people, but like, if you treat it like a job for a while, right, then you can win. But I guess, you know, at the end of the day, we're CEOs of our own company. Could you talk about that piece from being an entrepreneur versus having a regular job?
Yeah, I think it's very simple. When people fail, and let's be honest, most people do, the reason they fail is because when it gets hard, they like go into like defense mode. And it has to be the exact opposite. When it gets hard, you got to be so enthusiastic, more enthusiastic than you were when you first saw the opportunity. It's like when we go to convention, right? And this is a perfect time. We're now 2 months out of convention, whatever it is. We were so hyped for convention. Everything's amazing. This company's amazing. Everything we do is amazing. But now you're 2 months out, and you probably face some adversity in between convention and now. So now it's a rubber meets the road type of a time where you're like, okay, things are tough or whatever it is. What can I do to get myself out of the rut? Can I pick up my leads and go door knock them? Can I dial a little bit longer? Can I dial a little bit harder? Can I get on social media more and get my message out? Can I talk to more people? Like whatever it is, that's what I find can be the X factor. If when it gets hard, if you're like, oh, I don't know about this, I'm going to go look for something else. That's where the winners and the losers are kind of like parted, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, really good. Hey, there's a question on here. How important is to have your significant other with the same vision as you?
Great question. I think it's number one, you have to have support. You know, yes, like you're a prime example too. Not one person can do it alone. And the reality is most people, when you look at significant other, family, whatever it might be, they're either going to be all on board with you doing it or they're going to be the complete opposite and they're going to be a detractor. There's really like no in the middle, you know? So what you have to do, first of all, is show your family and significant other that you're willing to work hard and let them in on what the vision is, right? Even you are not going to sometimes see the vision in the day-to-day grind, right? Like you wanted to be an integrity partner. I want to be an integrity partner. That's the vision, but it takes a lot of grind and a lot of work and a lot of like loss to get there, right? Like it's like anything else. You got to get them in lockstep in the vision, and everybody has to really know their role. You know, like for me, you know, Margot's home with the kids. She does stuff on the backside, some contracting stuff, some recruiting. She takes care of a lot of stuff at home, and it allows me the time to focus on, all right, cool, I can go dial, run appointments, recruit, train, whatever. And we know our roles. So the roles have to be very, very defined. The problem is I think people get into this and then they don't communicate with their spouse. And then what happens is they're like, well, wait a minute, you're not going to be here, you know, Saturday night for the birthday party, and you're trying to work and hustle. And then all of a sudden they're opposed to it because you didn't communicate. And now you're behind on your production, you know, you're home, but now you don't have the money that you're looking for. So you got to align that vision, and you really should do it on like a month-to-month basis and map out, hey, this month we have X. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to adjust my schedule, adjust my production, and work this day over this day. But you got to get everybody on the same vision. Our vision was we're going to have kids. We didn't have them, and I didn't want it to be, hey, we're going to go put them in daycare. Like I didn't want to do that, nor did she. So we knew what we had to give up to do that. And now, you know, luckily we're able to do that, you know, God's graces, you know.
He's building his football team.
That's right.
True, and Morgan, who knows? I didn't ask that question. But yeah, that's the thing I've watched you guys too, you know, sometimes from a distance, but also anytime around, it's just rock solid support. And I can tell you, and I know it's similar in your home. I was on the phone with her today, and it's like she works as hard. I mean, obviously being a mom is hard enough, right? And being home, that's one of the hardest jobs, but most rewarding, but very hard. But having that, you know, our wives work as hard to help us support our business. I don't think people really realize what that looks like, but it is super, super important, regardless whether we're working full time or not. That support means a lot. I was telling somebody on the plane yesterday when I was talking to him, and I said it was a young man, and he was, you know, talking about his dreams and goals, and I shared with him. I said, dude, and this is kind of off of this, but he said, I told him, I said, your dreams and goals are yours. You know, don't give up on those. And sometimes the people that are close to us can be the ones that are our biggest detriment. I mean, it could be our parents, it could be somebody else in your life, and you have to make that decision because their dreams and goals are not yours. And if, you know, maybe because they're of fear or whatever, and his parents are not trying to hurt us, they're just trying to protect us because they think they are, but in a lot of ways they're also holding us back. So anyway, that's a similar situation.
For sure.
As I was thinking through this, what are some tips that you could give these young guys and gals of some things maybe you ran into in the beginning in the home, and obviously it would work, you know, on the phone as well if you've done virtual. I haven't asked that question. Are you doing any of that, or are you just all in home still?
Yeah, I do call transfers and some stuff that way.
Okay. When you first did that, was it like, obviously being in sales like you are, it wasn't probably as hard to transition to someone who's coming here or, you know, but there was some challenges. Maybe it was the computer here, there, whatever. What were some of those? And then have you seen it basically be the same, or, you know, what are some challenges with either or that you'd want to share and how they overcome that?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the big things for me would be control in a home, or if it's telesales, whatever it is. And then, you know, kind of your process with people and the psychology of people. That was one of the things, like early on, I was like, okay, like I'm not a sales guy. I wasn't in sales, you know, I was in restaurants, so I'm not a sales guy, but let me try and like analyze what we're doing here. Like people fill out something, they're looking for an insurance to protect someone. So to me, I was like, all right, that's the button I have to push with people. And I need to not make this a transaction, because this is not me going to buy, you know, this phone. You know, like I don't have to have this phone. You know, life might go on if I didn't have it. But if I don't have protection for my wife, my kids, what have you, as a client, it's like a different ballgame. So I started thinking along those lines, and it helped me in my communication with clients. One, being really good at asking questions in the house and letting them kind of tee me up and sell themselves, as opposed to the other way around. And then trying to analyze, okay, if you think about the insurances, you have like basically whole, term, universal. You got 3 types, and then we'll throw annuities. So in all the scenarios, how can, when they're telling me what they need, can I figure out which bucket they're going to be in? And then it was a matter of obviously health. And that was a big thing for me. And I think it's something that, you know, with underwriting, with agents, you got to be very careful of, you know, you listen to what people want, but then you got to understand what they can get. And you got to then, the sale is I sell you on what you can get. And that helps you pay more business. You know, a lot of people, hey, the IUL is great. Yeah, the IUL is great, but the IUL isn't great for the guy who's on dialysis and is 43. You know, you have to kind of know your audience. So I learned early on, I'm like, well, all right, this part of it, if their health dictates what they can get, I got to know that, number one. If my psychology around what their need is number 2. When I marry both of those things, now I can make more sales, because I'm not submitting things that they can't get, and I'm not trying to sell them things that are not going to fix their problem. To the telesales side or the call transfer side, I learned early on I had to take my in-home process, which is pretty quick to begin with, because I don't beat around the bush. I kind of get right to the point. I think in telesales, if it's one call close, if it's Zoom, if it's, you know, call transfer, you got to get to the point quicker, because people, you lose their attention span and they can hang up on you quicker. So I think I just started like cutting out a lot of the fluff in the appointment and just being very poignant in the questions around health, budget, you know, what they're looking to do, what they have in the way of other insurance, and then kind of dictating to them, here's the process, here's what I'm going to need next. So you're taking control, but you're doing it in a more, you know, condensed version. So this way you're not losing people and getting people to hang up on you. And it then even helps you in the house, because the reality is if your appointments are more than like 40 minutes, like other than them talking your ear off, you're probably doing something wrong and you're probably talking too much. So I think you kind of, you know, marry the two things on a regular in-home and a telesale and just try and condense it and get to the point quick.
There was another question here. Hey, by the way, since we're on that subject, maybe one or two questions that you've used, you know, in those situations to trigger those, if you have like that just work for you.
Okay, I'll give you a great example. So let's say you meet with someone and you ask them, I think a good question is, you know, like, has anybody passed away recently in your family? And they tell you. And let's face facts. Every week you run your appointment, you're going to get like your layups where that did happen, right? And that's why you're there. Then you're going to have like the middle ground of people like they might do it, might not do it, and they've thought about death but not maybe hard enough to do it today. And then you'll have the people that they just won't buy from anybody, right? So when people say, when you ask that question and they say, yeah, you know, my husband died 3 years ago, I'll look at them and, you know, eye contact is big. Did they have insurance? Were they covered? Like, you're trying to hit the emotional button with people because the emotional button takes you to where you want to go. Now, they're going to tell you yes or no, obviously. And then if it's yes, great. I'm really, really glad that they took care of that and they were responsible to do that. We're going to make sure that you do the same today. Or if they didn't, we're going to make sure you didn't make the same mistake. You know, but you know, we're talking about death, and most of us are not like, quote unquote, comfortable about talking about death, but you got to get comfortable talking about it because that emotion is what sells. If I sit there and I'm like, hey, you know, Mary, this is, you know, $30,000 for $100, that doesn't have emotion. That's a dollar amount versus a dollar amount. There's no death in that. It's just, I pay this for that, you know, and you got to get emotion.
I love it. Love it. All right. There's a couple other questions. Let's see. So what does your 40-hour schedule look like? 46-hour week schedule look like? You know, once you came full time here, I guess is that question.
Yeah. One, I think your schedule, you got to be very consistent in it. My schedule is so like just, it's mundane. You know what I mean? Like it's not, yeah, there's some wrinkles thrown in here and there, obviously, what we do. But for the most part, what I'm trying to accomplish, you know, Monday, dialing 8 to like 12, and then we have a call at 12, and then, you know, I'll probably do a little bit of recruiting for a couple hours. Then I'll dial again, let's say 3 to 5, and then, you know, a lot of times I'll go home. Let's say I get some leads tonight at 5:30, and then boom, I'm gonna go bang those out, and then eat and see the kids, go to bed, whatever. You know, tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on the lead flow and the appointment count, ideally I'd like to be in the field from, you know, 9 to 7, 9 to 8. You know, it's not always a reality. You know, lead flow obviously fluctuates. So what'll end up happening, I'll run what I run, and then in between, I'll turn call transfers on, calling agents, going through my book of business, trying to sell people I didn't sell, trying to get lapsed policies back on the books. But bottom line is, no matter what I'm doing the next 2 days, whether I have 15 appointments or not, I'm doing something that's calling people that could generate money. Like I just literally this morning walked in, I pulled up lapsed policies. I sold a lady 2 years ago. I called her and she goes, "Oh my God, yeah, I got to get something back in order, and I'm going to sell her a new policy because hers lapsed." So that's what I'm doing basically. Let's say Monday, running Tuesday, Wednesday. I do the same thing Thursday, run Friday, Saturday. And then in the middle of all this on the calendar is recruiting, calls, calls with agents, stuff like that. But everything I'm doing and everything I think you should do has to have a money-making element to it. And then lo and behold, you'll start making money, whether that's selling or, recruiting.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And that's kind of what again, calendars everything, right? Let's see. Well, a couple more questions here. We got to get you back. Let's see. Oh, well, this is a good one. Well, there's two things. I guess you kind of cover these real quick, and we'll kind of wrap up. Some of you, we need to get you back to what you got to do, and I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate it a lot. Let's see. The one was about social media, your strategy for recruiting, how that maybe has worked for you. And then let's see, and then your fitness, because I think those kind of go hand in hand a lot of times too. Because I know, we like to post it. Hey, we work out and stuff like that. But your fitness and your journey and how that's important, and then also the social media side for recruiting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, if you think about what a IMO, a marketing organization is, right? Like we market what we do, and we're a marketing company, and we just so happen to sell insurance. So I started really thinking about that, and obviously seeing people like yourself, Neen and Hayden, and all the people that really utilize social media to really grow their agency. And it's a learning, curve. And a lot of it can be uncomfortable, but let's face facts, all of this can be. You start sharing what you're doing. And I think what you find is you start almost like motivating some people, and then you start getting people that are motivated to gravitate to you and gravitate to what you're doing, right? Like you're putting out a positive message. You're putting out that you work. You're putting out, that you're living a good life. Not to say you're trying to say, hey, I'm making $1 million, but you're living a good life. You're happy, you're healthy. You're showing your family, and you're showing what you're doing. And then lo and behold, people start seeing that over and over and over. They're like, all right, like forget even working at FFL. Like I want to work with Dave. I want to work with Steve. I want to work with this one. And I think that was kind of the strategy the last, year or so with social media is just show people who you are and what you're doing, and that it's working. And then people are going to start coming to you and asking you, hey, wow, like, oh, okay, you do insurance. Like if I watch your videos, it shows that, you're talking about being an entrepreneur. All right, cool. Your vehicle is that. I'd like to get into that. And then the fitness side of it. You want to find people that are, they're taking care of themselves, mind, body, soul, and they're hard workers. Those are the people you want to be around, right? Those are the people you want to work with. So that was kind of like my strategy in social media, and it's an ever-evolving thing that, I think we're all learning, right? Like me and you are older, so it's not like we're not the 20-year-old generation of social media. I think we're trying to like figure it out and, lean on people that do it better than we do. But to me, I'm just like, okay, if I look at this on the surface, if I can portray these things that are true, and then I can find like-minded people like me, then you can build a team and an army of people like that. Now, it's work, like doing the social media stuff, right? Am I wrong? Like you got to record all this stuff and whatever. But if you're new at it, keep it simple, share other people's stuff. Just start sharing something, because now somebody sees it and they're like, whatever their scenario might be, you have such a reach on social media. They're like, wow, like I need an opportunity. Your warm market needs an opportunity. And next thing you know, people start reaching out, and then you start reaching out to people, and you start building, teams, like we have. And obviously you have a massive one now.
All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you. Any other last tips? I guess my thing would be this. I'll leave it at this and let you talk for a second as we wrap this up. First of all, I love you guys, you, Margot, and your family, Dominique. What's the little one's name?
Nicholas.
Okay. I got it for you. I'm getting there, man. Can't wait. But it's just good to see your family grow. I know it's a blessing. And one of the things I did see about him too is, and watching him, is like, yeah, he posts stuff. Like, it's not like hey, I'm over here in California drinking a margarita. It's not that. Like, he's working. It's obvious he works. Like, the numbers don't lie, guys. But at the same time, I know he's been very purposeful. And what I mean by that is with his time off on Sunday, right? That's his family time. I know that. And that's important to carve that out. But it's good to see. It's good to see. And, and it's hard. It's hard for us to shut that down, even though we love our families, right? But is there any last tips and the journey? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to fight the nose? Is it worth it to ultimately change your life, which obviously it has, right? If you were to go back to the restaurant business, what would that look like compared to where you're now? And is it worth it?
Yeah, for sure. First, I want to answer one question I see in the chat that I get all the time. Do you have a dialer or do you dial yourself? I've never had a dialer. I've dialed every lead ever. Just putting that out there. I don't think there's anything wrong with a dialer, and there might be, at this point, it might be good for me because maybe I could recruit more. But to me, unless you're at that level, dial the phone and get good at it. It's not that hard. Like, it's really just not that hard. But back to your point. So I always say this. I would trade my worst day doing this for my best day in corporate America or at any previous job that I had. There are challenges here. Everything is not perfect. I don't care where you are, what you do. However, the reward and the ability to live a life the way you want to live it, where honestly, it's really not about money per se. It's more about you having the control over the fact of, yeah, if I want to go on Sunday to the beach with my family, or if I want to do this or I want to do that, I have that freedom as everybody else does. But I also have the ability to have uncapped potential in earnings, right? Like it's simple here. Like, it's not easy, but you buy enough leads, you work hard enough, you get good enough, you make enough type of a thing. And you control that. Everybody here on this call controls their future. Are there factors and things we don't control? Of course. But if you worry about the things that you can control, like, you're going to be okay. But yeah, people need to understand the opportunity here, and you really need to understand the opportunity when things aren't going the way you think they should. And that's when you got to dig in deeper and reach out to people like Dave or myself to help you, because the reality is he's been through everything already. I've been through everything already. And there's a lot of other people who've been through everything already. So nothing's new. We've all been no-showed. We've all been told no. We've all had our time wasted. We've all had that. The difference is Dave didn't stop. Dave got up the next day. He's in the gym. He's posting a selfie. He didn't stop. He kept doing it. Were there days that were hard for him? Hell yeah, there were. But that's what, that separates the men from the boys, so to speak, because you kind of keep doing it. So everybody just keep that in the top of your mind. Like, yeah, it's going to get hard, but it's okay because I'm not going to let it beat me, and there's always another lead and there's always another person that needs insurance.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm going to ask just one more question. It's something you just said, and we're going to go. But you talked about the dialing piece, and you hit on something there that I think people need to hear. And I'm this is my guess, but the reason you're dialing your appointments, I know the difference between when I dialed and didn't, whatever. And you hit also a good point. I really always did it until like the very end before I came out of the field, or actually, no, I did it all the way like you did. And then I went back in the field for a minute, just to kind of inspire and just, help the team, whatever the case may be. And during that time, I did have that because I was recruiting and that ages were big, whatever. And now my telesales appointments, I'm having those booked because of time constraints. Literally my calendar is booked with either interviews or phone calls. Like, that's what Steve's saying is like, so my view is this with a dollar, and I want your opinion on this before we go. But I looked at a dollar as Steve's a hard worker, dude. And he, for me, when I was dialing, I'm assuming this is the same with you, I assume, is you knew when you made that phone call, as you got better at it, that you could almost tell percentage wise, they're going to be there. You kind of knew what you were dealing with before you showed up. Now, couldn't control a no-show. Obviously, there's just certain things that come up, but you obviously got really good at dialing in on it. But would you say that was one of the reasons why you stayed that way? And number two, because you're hesitant, because now you know what you're showing up into, whereas with a dollar, you really don't.
Right.
And then the other thing is you mentioned that to me, a dollar was somebody, I was going to work hard anyway. A dollar allowed me to, like you said, free up for recruiting, free up for more appointments, not less,
right.
More.
Right.
I think some people hire a dollar because they don't want to work, is my point.
Yes, correct. And that was always kind of my thought with people. And I 100% agree with you. When you're building and, you know, there's a lot of, you only have so much time in a day. But yes, it should be to get you more appointments. But the one thing I'd say, any dialer that you have, I find that most people that I've heard that have them, they're almost like training them in a sense to kind of like do it the way you want to do it. So if you're not any good at it and you never did it, how are you going to even hold them to a standard? You're not going to have any standard to hold them to. So to me, get good at it, which honestly, it doesn't take that long to get good at dialing. You know, like to me, dialing, you got to look at it very simple. Cut out the scripts and just look at the fact that you're having a phone conversation with another human being that's looking for insurance. You know what I mean? And all you're trying to figure out is either when they're home or when they can hop on Zoom with you or a telesale or however you're going to do it. But get good at it, because being good at dialing actually helps you be good in the house, you know, because now you kind of know, they know you, you know them. Like there's that relationship that you kind of build originally on the phone. But yeah, I think getting good at it, it then gives you the credibility when you're also recruiting, where you're like, yeah, like, okay, this is how to do it. And if you never did it and then you recruit and you're listening to them, you're going to be like, well, I have no idea, you know, what's the right or the wrong way, if that makes sense, because I don't know how to do it correctly. So yeah, I think you got to look at it that way. If you're building, cool, use it, as long as you're going to get the same amount of appointments and you're going to get enough time to build and recruit. But if you're just looking at it as, hey, it's going to be easier for me, anytime you do something that you say, hey, this will be quote unquote easier, you're setting yourself up to fail. You just are. This is a hard work type of an industry. And if you're looking for less work, you're going to really look for less success.
Thanks, Steve, man. Hey, we love it, bro. Appreciate you. I could listen to you all day, going back and forth, just, you know, asking questions, because this is good. It helps everyone. And we're all here to help you as well. If you need anything, I can't wait for your partner and all that stuff. And once you grow, if we can help in, you know, with the team or anything at all, call, whatever it is. We're always here we're all family. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's the thing that right now with integrity is you'll see is, you know, it's one team, man. And as we start moving forward, I'll leave it at that. You know, the partners are all together, same vision, not that we work, but I mean, just even more so, getting the people there that need to be there and growing integrity, man. That's what it's all about. And FFL is just a great part of that. So it's a great opportunity. I'm proud to be in business with you, but love you.
Likewise, my man. Have a great day. And thanks everybody for hopping on.